Good morning, people. Kind of a crazy day today. I think that a lot of people have heard about the ban of TikTok in the United States, and what a lot of people didn't talk about that is that all of the products that the parent company ByteDance owned also have been pulled from the U.S. markets, which includes CapCut. And CapCut is a video editing software that a lot of you out there have been using to edit videos, whether it's on TikTok or using it to edit content for YouTube or Instagram. It was one of those softwares that I think was very easy to learn, gave you the ability to do a lot with very little, wasn't very stressful on your system. So it was an easy win for a lot of people. And it had a free level entry version that you could start using right off the bat. So I feel for everybody who is waking up today going, what the heck is going on in my world? Because we tend to be sometimes the innocent bystanders of the fallout and the carnage of politics, whether those politics are right or you agree with them or you don't agree with them. You know, the creators out there who are just trying to make a living, you guys, I know, all have the best intentions, and you certainly just want to make content and connect with people. So a lot of people have come to me this morning saying, hey, I'm here because the ban on CapCut, and I'm trying to learn Resolve, and I'm trying to figure it out. And one of the things I wanted to go live this morning was to welcome everybody who may be starting to use Resolve to the community here that we have. You'll find that all the people here in chat, all the people across the YouTube community, guys like Casey Ferris, guys like Mr. Alex Tech. There's just so many great educators out there. Jay Lipman, Darren Mostyn on color, Colin Kelly. There's great educators in the DaVinci Resolve space. And I'm one of the newer ones. I'm one of the newer guys to the party here. So it's kind of funny that, you know, that I'm the guy talking to you today, because I'm probably the least qualified to do so. I've been using Resolve for a couple of years. I've been editing professionally for probably 6 or 8 years. This channel started about 6 years ago with the mission of trying to help creators learn how to edit videos, put them onto YouTube, and grow a YouTube channel. And we've leaned very, very heavily into video editing. A lot of the people on this channel know that I started using a product called DaVinci Resolve, another Chinese-based company that through their own accord, did some things, pulled our lifetime licenses, and sent a lot of us waking up one morning thinking, what the heck is going on? So we feel your pain, CapCut users. And I'm trying to do today just to make sure that your transition to Resolve can be a little bit easier. My cat is screaming in the background, who also wants to help you learn how to use the product. So don't let anything throw you off. I say to creators all the time, there's going to be hurdles in your life, and it's going to be anything from platforms shutting down to, you know, video editing software suddenly making bad choices or things disappearing on you. The best thing you can possibly do is just try to make sure that you keep working, keep a positive attitude, and don't give up. And that's always my goal on this channel, is to empower creators to make more content. So I don't want to waste any of your time today. I'm going to be talking about DaVinci Resolve on a very basic level, and I've done this on my channel before, but I always like revisiting, because you'll be surprised how many things that even people who think they know what's going on here and they go, I got all this part covered. I bet you I surprise you with a couple things you didn't know, even though you may be DaVinci Resolve users that have been around the block for a while. Because Resolve has a lot of hidden features tucked in and around corners, and I think it's always good to come back and do a good review of some of the things that that we consider basics, but we may have overlooked. So right off the bat, I've got links in the description where you can go download DaVinci Resolve for free today. The question I get a lot is, DaVinci Resolve really free? Yeah, they have a completely free version that they give away. They also have a paid version. And a lot of people ask me the next question, well, what's the difference between the paid version and the free version? And the biggest difference is beyond just features. You're going to get more features with the studio version. The paid version is called the studio version, and you're going to get more features, and you're going to get AI-driven features, like the ability to quickly mask out your background with a single swipe of your cursor, and the AI steps in and removes the background, stuff that we would spend a lot of time rotoscoping before. Has a lot of these AI features that step right in and make your life easier. But beyond just, you know, there's more transitions, things like that. But beyond the obvious feature things, it's behind the scenes of Resolve Studio that really makes me excited about it. One, you're going to get increased color bit depth, because the free version only supports up to 8-bit, and you can do 10 and 12-bit with the studio version. You're going to see file size and file type limitations, not size, file type limitations, where The studio version pretty much supports almost any type of codec and container out there. The free version is going to have limitations. So you're going to often find, if you're using the free version, you're like, why is this media not uploading properly? And it's because it might be one of the file types or codecs or containers that the free version doesn't support, or maybe you've got a frame rate limitation. That's another instance. The free version is going to support 4K up to 60 frames per second, but if you're importing different types of content that might be beyond that 8K, it won't be supported. So just be aware, take the time to look at some of the limitations, because one of the first things that happens is people will bring in footage and they've shot on their phone in Apple ProRes or something, and they're like, why is, it's 12-bit, it's not showing up, and come to find out it's just that version doesn't support it. So I think you will find, though, for your basic kind of editing with solid 4K footage, you will find that Resolve is a no-joke video editing software. It is a pro-level video editing software, and it is the color grading standard across the film industry. So if you go to their website, you'll start seeing all these Marvel movies that they've been, edited and color graded on DaVinci Resolve, and it'll blow your mind. The studio version is a fixed price of, depending on where you live in the US, it's about $300, $299. And a lot of people ask me that question. Is it a lifetime license? Yes, it is a lifetime license. I have talked to the head of the marketing department just to make sure, you guys have any intention of changing to a subscription model? They don't. They plan on keeping this available. One license will get you all the updates. The reason DaVinci Resolve can do that is if you look at Blackmagic Design, the parent company, they're actually a hardware company. They make amazing hardware for video editing, speed editors, keyboards, cameras. They make 8K, 12K cameras, giant mixing consoles, color grading consoles. They are a hardware developing company first, and the software supports their hardware, which puts them in a unique position to mess with companies like Adobe, who are charging, subscription fees every year, and they have separate types of software. Like After Effects is different than Adobe Premiere Pro, and you have to bundle them together, and it's a different experience here with DaVinci Resolve. They put it all in one software. They give you everything you need, one price, you own it for life, and they have that great free version that does, probably 80% of what the studio version does. One other thing I should mention, if you're a performance nut like I am, the free version does not support GPU acceleration. So if you have a really great graphics card, you spent a lot of time building your system, it's not gonna lean on that the way the studio version does, and the effects that are GPU accelerated aren't gonna move in the same way. Your exports are gonna be faster in the studio version. The way the entire software actually acts while you're using it will be quicker because of that GPU acceleration. So it's just something to think about. But the free version I used for a while just to make sure I understood it, and it really is a pure powerhouse. So let's try to dive right in here so we can cover a few things at once. Now, anyone who has used CapCut before probably is familiar with this screen. It looks something like this. This is sort of CapCut in a nutshell, okay? And CapCut kind of holds true to a very similar feel that a lot of video editing software has this paradigm of how they build. And you can open up different softwares. You'll start recognizing some of these things in DaVinci Resolve. And for the DaVinci Resolve users here who have never used CapCut, you're probably looking at this and going, that's it? One page? That's all you got to deal with? It's a lot more stripped down, and it's designed for ease of use, and it has some limited functionality. But CapCut was really good at sort of allowing people to make quick content. And if you look at this screen up here, let me get my face out of here for a minute. You will see, let me go over to here. You will see in the upper left of the CapCut screen, that's where you brought your media in. You can control your audio. You can put text layers, effects layers, your transitions. They were all up in the upper left. And then as you move to the right, there was a center screen that was your preview window, so that anything you were working on in your project, you would see here in that preview window. And much like a lot of the software we use, down below it was what we would call a timeline, right? And it has all those neat things that we expect to see in a timeline, like the play functions, the formatting, the ability to delete clips, cut clips, move them, edit them, stretch them, skew them. Very common things that you'll see in a lot of softwares that edit video. And then up in the right, what they had is this section that was in DaVinci Resolve, it was a bit like our inspector. Whenever you click on anything that's in your timeline, you'll have sort of open up the attributes section up in the upper right that allowed you to control those things in your timeline a little more effectively. Quick comment, I got to say a quick thanks to Major Editing. Daniel, I loved you with Filmora and was so thrilled that you took them on. Even more ecstatic that you're with DaVinci. Peace, brother. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Yeah, you know, Filmora was its own beast, and I'm glad that a lot of us are here with DaVinci Resolve and using a very high-end software now to edit videos and all learning together. So I love it. I love the journey. Thank you again for the super chat. So as I was saying, when we were looking back at this screen, it sort of is that basic thing that we've come to know that we see. It's a timeline, a preview window, and some control features on how we're going to bring footage in and then how we're going to do the kinds of things that we need to do with that software, you know, somewhere on your main user interface, the UI. All right. Well, if you have anyone here installed DaVinci Resolve, I think you know that it's a different beast. It is going to change the way that you see certain things because of the way they built the software. And let me take a minute to explain that. When you first install DaVinci Resolve, let me pull up a screen and we'll see if we can kind of walk through this together. Let me share a screen here. Here's my desktop. Where do I want to be? Maybe down in this corner? Yeah, why not? Here's my desktop, and here's the DaVinci Resolve logo that's sort of up in this upper right here. That's it right there, right? So you see the DaVinci Resolve logo. It's going to be on your desktop after you download and install it. And when you click it, I want to walk you through the experience just so you have an understanding of what to expect when you first install it, okay? So when you get this started, what it's going to do, it's going to pop up a window to let you know it's loading, and it's going to show you the version that you have installed. Currently, I have the latest version of DaVinci Resolve 19 Studio, but Studio and Free are very similar. Don't worry that I'm showing you Studio. We're going to stick to things that are available in both versions. Now, the very first thing you're going to see is this pop-up window, and this is your project manager. And I believe CapCut had a similar thing that had a pop-up window to allow you to decide which project you're going to work on. Now, I've got a bunch of different projects here, and they have moving thumbnails to them when I scroll over them. And when you're first starting, you're not going to see that. You're going to basically have two options when you first open DaVinci Resolve. And those two options will be, would you like to click on the untitled project? Or would you like to go down here and start a new project? That was the worst circle I've ever drawn in my life. Didn't even come close to the target. So those are your two options. And if you ask yourself, well, what's the difference here, Daniel? The main difference is just in the saving. If you open an untitled project, it just quickly opens the software and lets you get started. And if you start working before you close it, it will prompt you to save. It has not saved that project yet. And if you have a crash, be careful. DaVinci Resolve does save along the way. It automatically saves, but if you open from an untitled project, you probably want to, once you're in there, take the time to quickly name it, save it, do those things. If you decide to open the new project and click on this button down here, which is where a lot of us tend to start by saying, well, let's start with a new project. And let me show you that. I'll click on it, and you'll immediately see right in the middle, it's telling me, okay, just name the project, and then you would name it, and then just click create. Okay, so real simple. Just opens this project manager, decide to start a new project. Perfect. Let's call this one, we'll call this one CapCut users, just in honor of all you CapCut users who are with us today. And then I'm just going to hit create. I'm just going to hit that create button right there. And what happens when I do that is DaVinci Resolve loads. Now, let me take a second to walk you through what you're seeing here, because this can be confusing. Unlike CapCut, DaVinci Resolve doesn't have one single main homepage. It actually has 7 different pages down here at the bottom, okay? It opens up on the cut page, but let me show you what each one is. There's the first page is called the media page, all right? And that page, if you were to click on it, is just specifically designed to really pay attention to bringing in all of your media, all right? All of your assets, your video, your audio, your images, anything you want to bring in, VFX. You can bring all kinds of different things in here. But you don't, as you'll see coming up, you don't have to use each one of these pages. Don't freak out. Don't go, do I have to go to that page first and import everything? No. You're going to find that there's a simpler way to do this. But when you get into advanced importing of stuff and want to pre-cut things and do things like, well, I want to bring them in a certain way, that you'll find that the media page can give you options for importing your media in a specific methodology for advanced users who are bringing in bulk media for a lot of different projects, all right? There's Nick Nimmin. Good to see you, my friend. How you doing, Nick? So that's the first page. You're going to see that media page. Let me get my face out of the screen here. Now, down below, the second page, which is the default page you open up to, is called the cut page. And this page is specifically designed to just cut your footage quickly. It actually ties into some of the Blackmagic Design hardware very quickly, like the speed editor, for really fast editing, taking clips, cutting it all up, arranging it. Not fine-tuning, but really fast cutting and blowing out your basic cuts to your project. There's a lot of people who love working in the cut page, but to be perfectly honest with you, it's the third page where a lot of us live. This one right here, called the edit page, okay? And when we click on that, what you're going to see is something that feels somewhat familiar to a lot of you. Let me get my face out of here so we can really take a look at this, okay? All right. The cut page, the edit page, as we start here, in the upper left, you're going to see things that feel familiar. Your media pool is the option to bring in all of your assets, things, your video, your audio, your images, your clips, whatever you want to bring in. That's the media pool option. Your effects are down below in the lower left, right here. You can see them all right here. Effects, that's going to be things like your video transitions, audio transitions, titles, effects. There's all kinds of, this is where all the goodness is that you might be used to in CapCut that has like titles and elements and things you can drag and drop into your timeline. They're down in the lower left here. One thing right off the bat, a lot of times people will say to me, hey, Daniel, I opened up, let me put this into full screen mode so I don't have my taskbar popping up. People will say, my DaVinci Resolve, Daniel, seems to look a little different than your DaVinci Resolve. Like I opened it up and I didn't see like the effects or the tool menu. Right off the bat, what you want to understand when you're opening up DaVinci Resolve is that it has a couple of areas where it will enable different things on your screen. Okay, so like up in the right here, media pool, effects, index, your sound library, those are all clickable icons. So if I turn off media pool goes away. If I were to turn off effects by clicking on it, effects is going to go away. And now I'm left with nothing but my preview window and my timeline below. Okay, so just know if you're not seeing something on that left-hand side, it's because of that tray of icons in the upper left, just below like the file edit menu. If you're on Mac, it'll be at the very top because Mac hides that file edit menu. They put it up in the Apple logo. You'll just see all that stuff. So anything basically on the left side, click on the icons in the upper left to activate them and deactivate them. And then over on the right-hand side, let me get I'm still out of the way, cool. You're going to see options for things like a quick export. If you don't want to use, there's a different page for exporting in depth. There's the mixer for your audio. Metadata is going to show you all of the little data about each clip. If you clicked something in your timeline, a video clip, and you wanted to know the frame rate and how it was a codec and things like that, you can select it and it'll give you all the data of that clip, what it knows about it, or what's available from the file itself. And then the very last thing is the inspector. And the inspector is going to be very similar to what you CapCut users had in the upper right. You click on something in the timeline and you need to get deeper into it and rotate it and move it and stretch it like a video clip. The inspector is going to do that, and it's always going to pop up. It has different sections. If you're working with an audio clip, the inspector will be enabled and you can actually get in and play with the audio. So whatever you have in your timeline, the inspector is going to be that deeper detailed controls for what's going on in the timeline. So as we're looking at the software, usually how I keep this open is I'll have the media pool open on the left here. That's where you import things. I'll have the effects turned on, so they're down in the lower left. I typically have the inspector turned on in the upper right here. You can see I've clicked on the inspector. And then sometimes I'll leave the mixer on. You can see if I don't have any audio, so the mixer actually won't turn on right now. But if you turn the mixer on, that'll actually show you a couple of faders down here. We'll get to that when we bring some audio in. But very similar layout to anyone who may be using, coming from CapCut, right? It's not too dissimilar here. We've got basically up in the upper left is where you're going to bring things in. When we move to the right, you're going to see that preview window right here. Very common. Anything that's going on, that's where you're going to be looking at your project and seeing how it's edited and colored and all those things. Very common thing that you're used to. Upper right is going to be your controls, and at the very bottom, this is your timeline. Now, I didn't use CapCut enough to remember exactly how it broke things up, but one thing you do want to be aware of is that when you look at your timeline, you're going to see this center line that sort of goes right down the middle. And the way it imports video and audio is it will always separate the audio and video tracks. So if you have a piece of video that has audio attached, it's going to stick the video track up above that line, and then it will add the audio that's attached to that video just below it. And it'll say like video 1, audio 1. And if you add a second track, it'll keep adding the videos in an upward motion, and it'll keep adding the audio in a downward motion. So if this was track 1 and you brought in another piece and put it into a track above track 2, the audio portion of that, let me get my face out of the way, would then be added in a track below. So just remember that your audio tracks are going to stack downward and that your video tracks are going to stack upward. Okay, that's a general rule of thumb. There are times that things change a little bit in here, but just understand that that's your basic layout when you're bringing things in, okay? So let me escape out of this. So let's do a little bit of this. Like, okay, Daniel, show me how to get started here. I just opened this up. I installed DaVinci Resolve. I was a CapCut user. What the heck? How do I get started? Well, where you're going to get started is actually up in your upper left here. Let me go up here and let me show you this part. So make sure you have, let me go up. If I can get this thing to work, make sure you have media pool selected, because that's going to open up this window right here. That's going to allow you to bring in footage, assets, music, whatever you're going to put into your project to edit. This is where you're going to bring those things in. And the way you do that is just by right clicking in that open area, and you can very quickly choose to import media. So go right here. Don't let all these other options confuse you right now. There are for sure a lot of things going on right here, but for right now, just focus on, hey, that's where I'm going to import my media. Okay. So if I were to click there and hit import media, it's going to open up your computer, and then you can choose where you're going to find your files from and what it is you want to bring in here. So let me go to, let's see, I got to see what I have for projects here. How about some clips I'm using for like a DaVinci Resolve project right here. Let me go to a file. Let me find something that has, this is a screen capture. I'm going to bring this in. Now, what you'll notice is the minute I bring stuff in, look what happened. There's a pop-up window that says, hey, do you want to change the frame rate? Because it's one of the first things that DaVinci Resolve will ask you. Do you want your project to reflect the frame rate of the content that you're bringing in? And if you're mostly filming in one frame rate, like all your footage you filmed yourself, you can say, yes, go ahead, change it. But if you don't want to apply the project frame rate to this one clip and reflect it, then say don't change. A lot of times I film things that are in one specific frame rate, so it's easy for me to do it. That's just your choice. You can easily choose don't change and change it later. But let's say I did select don't change and I just brought it in. What you'll see is there's my footage now up in this media area, right? That was the media pool. It just stuck it right there. Now, one of the things you want to understand is that you can create a file system in here. I won't go too deep. I'm just going to go simple. You can actually build things in here where you can say, oh, well, I would like to have, over here, I would like to create, right click, and create a new bin. That's what that is, new bin. Think of a bin as a folder, just a folder. They call it bins in DaVinci Resolve. So if you say, all right, I want a new bin, and I want to name that bin, I got it up there. I'm going to name it, whatever the project is today. Project 1. And if you look, it's right here under the master. There's project 1, and here's that project 1 folder, right? So you can start building a project file system. And you could even click up on this right here. If you click on that, it'll open that file. And then I can build more folders inside of it if I wanted. I could say, let me click inside of it and let me create another new bin. That's just another new folder. Just going to create a new folder there. And maybe I'm going to go video. Maybe I'm going to click on another one, add a new bin, and I'm going to this time put audio. I do this a lot in my projects. I try to create like a file system that makes sense. Create another new bin. Maybe I'm going to use this one just for images. And then maybe I'm going to do one new bin and I'm going to call it timelines. Here's something that's going to be probably different for a lot of you. In DaVinci Resolve, one thing that CapCut I don't think does, in DaVinci Resolve, you can have multiple timelines. You can open multiple projects at once. You can be running different versions of your project. You know, I do it sometimes. We'll open up a timeline. One will be 16 by 9. One will be 9 by 16, a different aspect ratio for different social media. If one was going to go onto TikTok, one was going to go onto Instagram, it might be vertical, or shorts on YouTube, and I might do a landscape version for long form. This allows you to do all that, and we'll get into that. But nice and simple is just a very simple file structure that I've done here. And I can grab I think I have my video outside. Let me put my video inside a project and then move that video clip into the video folder. Okay, so here's my video. All I need to do is up in the upper left is left click on it right here and just drag it down into your timeline. Okay, just put it in there. And what we have, let me mute this so it doesn't play, is just a screen capture for a video I'm working on. And just like I said, you can see the minute I brought a video clip in, it created two separate files here. The blue is your video, and that's, again, above that line. And the audio is just below it. And these two are connected. That's that same. And if you see, it says video 1 and audio 1. So it's going to name those tracks, you know, sort of up. As you stack more in, you'll see that it starts stacking outward. If I were to grab that exact same clip in and bring it in and drop it in a track above, can you see what's happening here? It grabbed that next one. It put, even though these two are attached to audio and video, it's going to put the video for the second track up here and the audio for the second track below it. So it's always going to stack audio this way, stack video that way. Nice and simple. Okay. Let me get rid of that. Oh, I should quickly mention what I just did. I actually just deleted this in the timeline. That's a question I get a lot. People will a lot of times go, hey, I went to delete my footage and everything got real funky. And that can happen because they hit the delete button. The delete button on DaVinci Resolve is actually a ripple delete. So if you ever have a piece of footage in your timeline and you want to get rid of it, you actually want to select it and hit the backspace button. That's how we quickly get out of cutting something out of the timeline without moving and ripple deleting other things. Really important. So backspace for delete. So I have my single track here. I actually, you see when I got rid of that other track, it still holds on to the video too and audio too. So it leaves those tracks available. It won't delete those tracks unless I tell DaVinci Resolve to get rid of them. So I'm going to leave them there for now. It doesn't really matter, but you can always add more tracks. If you were looking to add more tracks, you can either just drag your footage down. Oops, I was covering that when I said that, right? Let me show you again. So down here, you can see, let me make sure I can get in here. You can see down here, there's the video 2 track is still there and the audio track 2 is still there. So they didn't delete when I deleted the footage. It doesn't delete the track. It just deletes what I had put into that. And it created those tracks just by dragging the footage down in. Now that's one way to create more tracks if you're building a project out. Another way to create more tracks is just right click in that track area and you're going to see this options menu right here. Now you can add a single track because I clicked up in the video section. If I say add track, it's going to add a video track. If I had done that down here in the audio section, it would create an audio track. If I need to add multiple tracks, I can click on the add tracks option, right? I mean, what am I doing here? I don't want that. I'm hitting all kinds of buttons. I can click on the add tracks option and what you're going to see is this window here. And this is for when you want to open up multiple tracks in different ways. You can say, okay, well, here's the video tracks section. How many video tracks would you like to create? And where would you like us to place those? Do you want them above the existing file track location? Below, if you have like track 1 and track 2 in there and you want to put another track that becomes the new track 1, you could choose to put that below track 1 and it becomes your new track 1 and pushes everything upward. And then the same thing with audio tracks. You can say the number of tracks and where you'd like them to be placed. And then the type of audio track. You want a mono track, a stereo track, a Dolby Surround. You can do all those things for adding tracks right here by right-clicking down in this window in the track section and opening up the add tracks and deciding how many you want to add. I'm not going to add any now, but that's simple ways. Either drag footage in or open up the tracks, the track managers section down here just by right-clicking anywhere down in here, and it'll open up the ability to add more tracks, okay? So once you have a track in here, you're like, okay, Daniel, here's my track. There's my playhead. There's a lot of buttons up here. So looking at all these buttons, one of the things you might first start thinking about as well, I've got it in here. The very first thing a lot of people tend to do is they start cutting their footage. Now, if you look at DaVinci Resolve right here, this first section of icons that's just above your timeline, there's sort of this whole bar of icons that are all going to deal with functionality down in your timeline, right? One of the things that people often do is they'll quickly grab this tool right here, the razor blade, as I cross it out, and they'll click on that. They now have the razor blade activated, and then they'll go through their footage and they'll just start clicking on the footage and cutting it up, because the razor blade will cut the footage wherever you happen to put it. As you can see, every time I clicked, it made a cut wherever I just sort of put it. I don't actually use the razor blade, and a lot of people that I know who edit in DaVinci Resolve don't use the razor blade either, mostly because, let me escape this, it takes extra time toggling between, let me go over to the razor blade, let me cut, let me come back. Most people will stay right in the this mode right here, which I believe, I always forget what they actually call it. I'm going to hover. It's called the selection mode. So that's just the arrow pointer selection mode. Because if you do that, you can just put your playhead wherever you want, and you can hit on PC, it's Control B. And what you'll see is when you just do that, it'll put a slice wherever that playhead was. And if I move that playhead over, and I hit Control B again, you'll see that it yet again has made another slice, and you can kind of walk through and cut up your footage just by moving the playhead where you want to cut. Boom, Control B, bam, you get a quick cut. On Mac users help me out. Control, I think, is Command. I always forget that I use Mac, but not enough to remember the crossover. I think it's Command B, but you can easily find all of those shortcuts on either online, or I'll show you where to find them inside of DaVinci Resolve if you like keyboard shortcuts. So that's one you'll use a lot. Quick cuts, move your playhead around, cut. And then once you've done that, everything's going to feel really familiar to you. You have the ability to grab footage and move it around in your timeline, right? Just grab it. When it's selected, you'll notice that it's surrounded in red. And if you click on a video clip and the audio clip is linked to it, then they'll both be surrounded in red. As you can see here, both of these have like an orangey red surround. That's just telling you, okay, those two are linked together. And when I move them, they move together, right? If you're in a position where you don't want your clips linked, what you can do, if you need to unlink them, let's say you wanted to remove the audio from your clip, you had something you brought in and had audio attached, and you go, I don't want to use the audio. What you can do is right-click on that particular footage in your timeline, and you'll see at the very bottom of that entire drop-down menu is an option that says Link Clips, and it has a check mark next to it. All you need to do is uncheck that particular option, and your two clips are now, the audio and the video are unlinked. Word of caution. If you do this, you will notice these are still both highlighted because they are highlighted for me selecting them. So if you're going to delete the audio of this and you unlink them, you do need to click away and then come back to that and just select the audio. So see right there, I'm going to click into the gray area. Now nothing is selected. Let me click on just the audio. Whoops, why do I keep hitting this? I'm going to learn these shortcuts yet. I'm going to click on just the audio. And you can see now only the audio is surrounded in orange. Okay, so that tells me that, okay, just the audio is selected. And remember how I told you can delete by hitting backspace? If I were to hit backspace, watch what happens to that audio. Just the audio disappears. So now the audio is gone and I'm leaving the video section, okay? Really simple way to do that. If you find that you are trying to do things and you go, well, Daniel taught me how to link and unlink things, but when I try to move things that are linked, they aren't doing, I should probably mention really quickly, if you select both and right click again, then you can relink them. Just select what you want to have linked, and you can hit the link button again, and it'll link all back up. You can even do that with more than just 2 pieces. You could link a whole group together if you want. But if you find that, like, okay, these clips are linked, and when I go to delete one half of it or do something, it's not acting, even though they're linked together. What I find is, okay, I'm going to go delete part of this, and I hit backspace, and different things move in different ways. Sometimes they don't always. These are all supposed to be linked, and I'm not seeing things working the way they should. You want to make sure that you have a couple of things. You have to have this little chain link. That has to be white. You have to click on that so that the linking is enabled. That's right there. So if you're having any problem with, like, why is it not acting like it's linked, make sure you have your linking enabled right there. That's all these little things right above that main timeline. And if you want your clips to snap in place, something you're probably used to using CapCut, make sure you have the magnet turned on. All right. If you have the magnet turned on, what'll happen is it'll kind of snap in place. Can you see right here, when I put this one in, this white line happens and it sort of snaps, it creates this snap line. If you don't have that magnet right here enabled, if that is turned off, what you're going to see happens is when you pull these together, it'll kind of just overlap and start overwriting. You know what I mean? It looks like it pulls. It doesn't stop. It's like, whoa, I can't get it to connect. It's like going right over and eliminating a big part of the other footage. So make sure you have the magnet on so it'll just snap to certain locations and it'll stop. You can still push past, but it'll do that. You'll feel it snap into place so you're not overwriting something you're trying to link together. So very simple things that you're probably used to in CapCut, or in a lot of video editing softwares have these features. But those are the simple ones to start, all right? These are your tracks, that's your features, that's how to select audio, video, how to cut them, how to move them around. That's the basics of bringing in your footage. Now, one thing before I get too far is you probably want to know about setting your project settings. Now, that is available up under the file menu. You can scroll down to project settings, but there's also a link to the project settings right at the very bottom here. Do you see that little cog wheel down on the lower right? These two things here. This one, the house, will give you your project manager. So if you pop that up, it's just same exact project manager we saw when we first started the software. So if you wanted to switch to a different project, click on that little house, it'll open up the project manager and you can go to a different project. But that little cog wheel in the lower right, the farthest lower right, that is your settings. And when you open this up, it's going to look a little more advanced than probably what you're used to in CapCut. But really simply, where you want to start is master settings. And this is going to give you all of that stuff that you're kind of used to. Let me get my face out of here. All of the things that are important to you. Your timeline resolution, right? Like, what are you dealing with here? Is your footage 4K? Is it 1080, 720? Is it 8K? You can do all of that right here. And what's really cool is DaVinci Resolve has an option. Like right now, I am set for UHD, 4K UHD, 3840 by 2160. That's sort of the what we would refer to as, you know, the typical widescreen format on YouTube for 4K. But if you wanted to do like a 9:16 short in 4K, there's an option that's right below this, that arrow that says use vertical resolution. And all you need to do is click that, and it'll instantly swap all of this information and go, oh, you wanted the opposite. You wanted 9:16 vertical, and it'll swap it. And you can see it goes from 3840 by 2160 to 2160 by 3840. Quick swap, upside down, nice and easy. So you can find your formats here if you happen to be on Instagram or any format that's using square. You can set that square resolution right here. You could do 3840 by 3840 or 1080 by 1080. You're deciding the resolution and the aspect ratio. Is it square? Is it rectangle? Is it vertical? That all happens right here at the top of your project settings, all right? Let me take a second to quickly look at some questions because we've got some coming in. Pixar asked, how do I import effects? Are you going to cover that later on? I'm going to talk about effects, yes, absolutely. Daniel Batal, I've inadvertently minimized in the past and couldn't restore to full screen. Would you mind demonstrating? Absolutely. Might want to slow down. Someone is confused. Yeah, that's what Megan's saying to me. I know, I'm confused. I'll try to keep this as slow as possible, but remember, I'm going to leave this up for the replay. You can come back through for me and check this out. And if there's anything I went too quickly, you can come back in. And feel free to yell questions out. I got Megan in there. Megan, say hi to the people.
Hello, everyone.
Megan works the desk, and she's always paying attention in chat. So if you have any questions, shout them out and she'll make sure I see them. So again, this is where you're setting up your project settings right here. And most of this is pretty straightforward. You can set your frame rate right here. So remember I told you when you first brought footage in, it gave you the option to change the project frame rate to whatever that footage was that you first imported. It does it on the very first clip you bring in. If you didn't want to do that and you chose not to change it, you can go in here and say, well, now I'm going to change the project frame rate to what I want. And a lot of times I'll do this first. I'll open up a project, I'll open up the project settings, set it to everything I want. And then I will start my project based on what that project's going to be. The other thing that you want to pay attention to while you're here is one other simple suggestion, especially if you're making content for YouTube. If you look on this same page, you see it says Fairlight. That is the audio section, the audio page of DaVinci Resolve. And if you click on Fairlight, what you want to pay attention to is something you may not know if you aren't using an advanced video editing software. It has a target loudness level, and this confuses a lot of people. They call it LUFS, L-U-F-S, and it is it's the perceived volume of something at, when they hear it. And sometimes people think that's like normalization, or they think that it might be like the total volume, like a compressor or a normalization. It's not. What it is you can have two pieces of audio content that are hitting the meters both at zero, right? Maybe if one is someone talking and another one is a band playing. And depending how the EQ, compression, and things are put onto that audio, even though they're peaking at the same decibel level, one might just appear or sound louder just because of how it's mixed and how the audio is put together. And that's what LUFS refers to, the perceived volume regardless of the decibel level. And when you're trying to put content onto YouTube, you want to be very aware of the fact that they have a target LUFS level, or they'll start adding compression. And here what you want to do is just change that to -14 if you are putting stuff onto YouTube. It's one of the few simple things that I do when I set up a project for YouTube, because I do a lot of content creation. That's like my first thing that I change is, let me set that over to -14 LUFS. And the other thing I do is just set up the master settings quickly, go, okay, here's my project resolution, here's my frame rate right up here, there it is right there, and then I'm ready to go. Don't worry about all these other things right now. They aren't going to be super important unless you run into some issues. And we'll talk about those. Most of the time, just get started, save your project, you're good to go. You can start doing that thing. And don't get overwhelmed by how many functions and features there are on YouTube. You may be coming from CapCut thinking, well, I learned all of CapCut. I knew what every button did. That's what I should do here in DaVinci Resolve. I promise you, if you try to do that, you will frustrate yourself, because DaVinci Resolve is basically not only a video editing software, but they've got an entire DAW, D-A-W, digital audio workstation called Fairlight that they purchased and brought into the software and integrated it and rebuilt it to work with Resolve. They bought another software company called Fusion, which is a compositing node-based software, which is basically like After Effects, and brought that into the software. That's another page. So there's all these different functionalities inside of Fusion where it's really 3 softwares in one, right? It's a video editing software, it's a full digital audio workstation, and a full compositing software, something that most other video editing softwares aren't. And it's got a complete color management section. And I should have taken the time to show you those right off the bat, and I'll show you those other pages quickly just so you can see them. Remember where we started at the very beginning? I said, this first page down here, that's the media page where you can use to just import things. But as I showed, you can do that right from the edit page. The cut page is designed to really focus on cutting up a bunch of footage quickly, not advanced editing, but really cut it up, slice it up, get it kind of roughed out. The edit page is where most of us live. And then the next pages are, this is Fusion. That is that node-based compositing page I talked about. This is your color page. That's going to be dedicated towards just color grading and color correcting. Fairlight is your music page. It's your full digital audio workstation. And the very last page is Deliver, and that's where you'll be able to set up advanced export settings so that you can not just export your project you're on, you can create 6 different versions of the project you're on, and you can have all different exports happening at the same time. This is going to be a super advanced thing. You don't need to do that. You can do a quick export right at the top, or you can go to the deliver page, and we'll talk about that. But don't overcomplicate it. What I would do if I were you, if you're coming from something like CapCut, just think like, okay, Daniel was telling me that as I'm sitting here, I should be making sure my media pool is enabled and make sure I'm on the edit page. I should be importing my footage and my music and things in my video right here. When I'm ready to use them, I should drag them down onto my timeline, and it will allow for tracks. I can move them around as I'm used to with other software. I will be looking at the preview window of wherever my playhead is, will be right up here. Don't let this throw you off the screen capture of DaVinci Resolve for a tutorial I'm doing, but this is just a 9:16 version of a screen capture I'm doing. And then anytime I select anything, footage down here, let me simplify by getting rid of a lot of this. I'm going to select all that. I'm going to draw a big box around everything. I just left click held and drew a box. So I'm selecting all that. I'm going to hit backspace, got rid of all that extra footage. Now let's say I have a clip right here. All right. Now this is a screen capture of DaVinci Resolve because I do a lot of tutorials on DaVinci Resolve. But that could be anything. Let me try it with, let me bring something else in that's just maybe some B-roll footage. Let me just open up some power bins here. I'll show you that afterwards, but let me grab some B-roll footage of, I don't know, a person. How about this girl? This is some girl blowing bubbles. And let me see. Let me set my, I'm going to do this back. I'm changing my project settings back from 9:16 to 16:9. And I'm going to pull the screen open. If you wonder what I just did there, DaVinci Resolve has a fairly static UI. You can't rearrange. You can't say, gee, I sure would love to have my preview window on the left and my timeline up above. It doesn't do that. But if you put your cursor right between the panels, like these black lines that separate the preview window from the timeline, you can actually grab those, left click and hold, and you can stretch. So you can make the timeline bigger. You could decide, even the ones that are vertical on the left, you can stretch out and go, I want the media pool and the effects section to be bigger. I want up here, you can change almost all of these. You could decide to click on almost anything, expand it, move it around, and give yourself a different proportion of how things are laid out. And that's just up to you. So that's what I often will do, is I'll just move things around to get, if I only have a couple of tracks, I'll make that bigger. So let's say we have a clip right here of this girl, and she's just blowing bubbles and dancing around. That's the life. That's every CapCut user this morning. Just waking up, blowing bubbles, dancing around with curlers in their hair, happy as can be, going, where did my software go? I don't think so. If I select this down in the timeline, that's all I did was I just clicked on it, and you can see it's surrounded in red, so I have this selected. If I go to the upper right and I make sure I have the inspector turned on, let me move my face out of the way. If I make sure I have the inspector turned on by clicking that, you'll see a very familiar panel that you often get inside of CapCut, which is just the controls of that. And in the upper right here, really quickly, you're going to see that there is a transform section that allows you to move left and right, up and down. You can spin, rotate, do all of those things. And then below it, you're going to see the ability to crop. You're going to see the ability to change the opacity. You can even change the speed. You can add stabilization, lens correction, all of the things that you would want to do with that piece of footage is now going to be available in that upper right inspector if you selected it in your timeline. So whatever you select in the timeline in the upper right, that's where your more detailed and granular controls are going to be. So if I have this selected here and I go to I'm going to go to the upper right here, and I'm going to focus on this upper section right here. And maybe I want to zoom in. All I got to do is just left click and hold, and I can just drag that. I'm just left clicking on the number section here, and I'm left clicking and holding, and I'm pulling to the right and to the left. And that's changing the zoom. Below it, I can go left and right with the X and Y values, same thing. I can do a rotation here. There's a rotation. All of that stuff's in the upper right, and they're incremental. They work by numbers, and you can change things around and put it however you want. And if you have it all twisted, you can also do pitch. This is going to shift that footage on its X and Y axis, pitch and yaw, so you can really get some kind of crazy layouts here if you want to do something a little bit different. We do a lot of this sometimes when we're trying to like take an image and put it inside of a television set that's on the wall, but the television is filmed at an angle and we want to try to replace the screen. That's when we're using pitch and yaw and moving things around. But all those controls are going to be in the upper right. And it's just spinning, moving, expanding. And what happens is a lot of times people go, Daniel, I don't love these controls. They have all these reset buttons next to them. You should always know that if you do something and you go, I just want to get it back to where it was, click on these reset buttons on the right. And if I do that, you'll see the footage goes right back to where it was. I just clicked on the main reset button right here. And that just for the transform section, put it all back to 0. And a lot of people say like, well, that seems clunky. Like, why do I have to grab one fader to move it left and another fader to move it right? Why can't I just grab the thing on screen in the preview window and move it around the way I want? Well, you actually can. All right, so this is what you're going to learn about Resolve, is there's always more than one way to do things. It's got very granular controls for very detailed motions. But one thing that you can do is if you go to the lower left here, right below your preview window, see that little square right there? It's got like a little square and a drop-down menu. Let's click on that. And the very first thing that you'll see is the very top says Transform. This is an option to take most of the transform features that you see in the upper right and put them on screen so you don't have to be moving numbers and sliders and faders. It's just another way to do it. I do it this way all the time. And if I click that, watch, do you see now that the video on screen now has this line, this white line around it with some dots on the sides and on the corners? That allows you to now go up and just put your cursor into the preview window, and you can grab like exactly what you would expect. Grab a corner dot, left click and hold, shrink it down. Pull back outward, shrink it outward. In the center, there's a rotation one, so you can just rotate it. And you can do all this just by clicking in the preview window instead of using all of those transform options in the upper right. This is the fast, easy way, and you'll start using this with zooms and things. It's just a real good shortcut to just work in the screen, select your footage, go up there, move it around. Because a lot of times people will do like, well, Daniel, how do I do a picture-in-picture? Let me reset that. The same reset functions work up there. Someone might say to me, Daniel, I want to do a picture-in-picture. I say, well, that's easy. Just bring another piece of footage. Let me move this down. Another piece of footage down in your timeline. So I now have 2, right? Let's call this the background track. And let's say this is the one that I want to be the picture-in-picture. All I do is select the top track. I now have that selected. It's covered. It's surrounded in orangey red. And with the transform option enabled, I can go, let me just resize that dude. Let me drag him down. And I now have, boom, I now have picture-in-picture. There's the smaller one and there's the background. Really simple way to achieve very common tasks like putting multiple pieces of video footage on screen, shrinking them down, moving them around, having one on top of the other. A lot of times when I do tutorials, even right now, you can see I'm using a picture-in-picture. I'm down in the lower left talking to you while the software is in the upper right. So these are the kind of things you can do with Resolve very simply with that transform option. Some other things you want to think about is once you've got some footage there, let me get rid of some of this stuff, is very simple things you might want to do. You might say, okay, Daniel, how do I do something like, I just want to do some transitions. I want to be able to like dissolve from one piece of footage to another. Well, let's bring down another piece of footage. Let's bring something that's very different. Here's a dude, he's got a very orange background, okay? So this guy has an orange background. You can see it, 2 different pieces of footage. And if you just played through, it would just be kind of a hard change, like boom, right to the other one. Well, what if you wanted to add like a dissolve? That's where we go over to this lower right section here. Let me get this zoomed in for you if I can find it. This here, this is your effects section that starts with Toolbox. Again, if you do not see that, make sure you have effects in the upper left clicked. It should be white highlighted. That's going to turn on the effects window down below. If you don't see it, you got to click on that effects in the upper right, and there's your effects. Now it's going to have a lot of different effects down here. There are more in the studio version than there are in the free version, but you'll see very simple things like video transitions, audio transitions, Oh, there's my titles. Generators we'll talk about, but there's my effects. This is where all of that stuff that you're kind of used to seeing as a CapCut user was sort of in the upper left. This is now sort of down in the lower left, and it's going to have all different things that you can try to apply. But there's some really cool functionality in both versions of the free and the paid version of DaVinci Resolve. And let me show you some of this. Let's say you have your playhead right between these two pieces of footage. Can you see that? I've got the two pieces of footage, 1 and 2. The playhead I stuck right down the middle of the split where they meet. What you can do is you can go over to the video transitions on the left, right over here. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to open up these video transitions. And if you look, there's a whole list of them. There are more in Studio than the free version, but there's a whole scroll bar on the right, tons of different transitions. But here's what's really cool. Let's talk about what you can do with them. You don't have to bring them in to see what they look like. You can literally just hover your mouse. If you you don't even have to click. Let's say like this one is a cross dissolve. If I put my mouse cursor right here and I just move it to the right, I don't even need to click. If I just move it to the right, what you're going to see is, watch the preview window. You're going to see what that would look like. All right. And here's a blur dissolve above it. Let me try that one. That's going to show you what that transition looks like. I haven't added it. I haven't done anything. What about a smooth cut? It's almost like a warp. Woof. That'll show you exactly what that is. And as you go down, there's an iris transition. Here's diamond iris. Here's a cross iris. There's an oval iris. There's all these different transitions you'll find, right? Barn doors, it throws it open. A slide transition pushes that in. All of that happens just by hovering over the transition, okay? Now, once you've decided, like, oh, that's the transition I want. I really liked whatever. Maybe I like the square or whatever. I'm a real simple guy. I like cross dissolves. All you need to do is left click on that, hold and drag it into your timeline, and you can drop it onto your clips, okay? And you can put that transition right into your clip. Now, here's something that different softwares handle differently. And I get a lot of people asking me like, my transitions don't work. I have to take a quick second to thank my pal Sammy Superstar with a $19.99 super chat. Keep up the great work with the Resolve content. Thank you so much, Sammy. Hope you're doing well, pal. If I come out to New York again soon, I'll have to make sure I give you a call and we hang out again. I love Sammy. He and I like to hang out when I'm in New York. He's just south. He's just over the border in New Jersey. Hope you're doing good, pal. Thank you so much for the super chat. One of the things that you have to understand, when you're dropping in a transition is like a dissolve. It is assuming that it is grabbing information before the point of contact. And that confuses a lot of people. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to have to do this really quickly in a way that makes sense. Okay. Let me pull the software up. If I grab a cross dissolve transition and I left click, hold, and I drag that down, let me zoom in, you can see it drops right here. I just put it, you can see that square, and I put it right between those two pieces of footage. Okay. So there, oops, I deleted it accidentally. Let me put it there. So now let me stretch this out so you can see it. There is now a blur dissolve transition right here between those two clips. All right. But what confuses a lot of people is different softwares handle this differently. In order for Resolve to start dissolving in from this point here, right there, it needs to have information from this video clip back to that point. Not just from here, not just from the split, because it needs to start fading in before it. And what happens is, this is a perfect example. Right now, this is working fine. If I play it, it'll dissolve between the two. But if these clips actually are at what we call finality, and I want to make sure you guys understand, if I bring a clip in and I'm in my timeline and I say, let me just look at this clip, I'm stretching this clip out. It can't go any farther left. That was the very first frame that was filmed, and this is the very last frame to the right. I can't stretch it any farther to the right. If I grab another clip that has the same issue, that's as much information as in that clip on the left at the beginning, and that's all the information there is on the right, and I put them together, and I try to put a cross dissolve on there, it will not, regardless of transition, allow me to drop it in there, because there is no information all the way back here. Now, in general, when you're working with footage like me, you film stuff, you're cutting up pieces, usually there's more information before or after the clip that you're using because you've cut it up. But if you're in a situation where you're using a piece of footage that is at totality, meaning there's no more frames at the beginning, there's no more frames at the end, you're going to get a transition error, like it won't drop in. There's an easy way to solve that. Now, what you would do is just look at your footage down here and go, well, how much of this do I would like it to blur from like there to there. Okay. Well, then what you need to do is you need to drag back the first footage and drag over the second footage. So you're pulling those extra frames in. Did you see what I just did? Let me see if I can get this to go in. All I did was I just dragged this end in a little bit and I didn't move it. I dragged the end in. This is something CapCut users are going to be used to. You can actually left click. You see that. Let me see if you can see the cursor. Doesn't show the cursor when I zoom in, but you can drag it in, make a few more frames, push them together. And now my dissolve or whatever transition I choose to use, now it's going to apply because I provided information at the beginning and at the end of that, of each clip. If there's no information there, it can't dissolve between the two. So that's one of the things that confuses some people. Different software handle it different. For any of you people who used to use Filmora used to replicate the frame at the beginning. So it would go, oh, you can drop a transition in between two clips, but if you paid close attention, the entire beginning of the transition, if they were at totality, would be frozen. It would be like the both clips would be like the end frame repeated and the beginning frame from the next one, and there'd be no motion, and the minute the transition was done, everything would start moving again. So some software will automatically jam things together and create those frames, but then it creates problems if you are locked to like an audio track because it throws the audio off. So just be aware if you're adding transitions, you need the data to be able to make the transition. Does that make sense? In the chat right now, give me a thumbs up if that makes sense, because that's one of those things I get all the time where people say, I don't understand why my transition is not working. And it's just this, they don't have the frames there. They've got their clips at totality, and there's no more information to start a fade in earlier than the very first frame that's available. So if that makes sense, just give me a thumbs up. I want to make sure that that makes sense for you guys. And if it doesn't, ask me to explain it better, and I will, because it is one of those things that I think confuses some people. Jerry, of course, how you doing, Jerry? Says, yeah, I got it. I've run into that before. Let me quickly go over here and let me check. Let me skip. I got to check what's going on with some of the messages from the chat. Lorenz Vincel Adelum says, how can I use a .movie file in DaVinci Resolve? I can't use .movie in DaVinci Resolve, but I can in CapCut. Is there any way to use a .mov file? You can use a .mov file in DaVinci Resolve. What you have to understand is that the free version has limitations that the studio version doesn't. So it depends on the type of MOV file you can use in the free version. I think the free version does support certain MOV files, but again, you have to know the color bit depth, you have to know the frame rate. So the easiest way to do that is either make sure you look at the supported file types that are all available on the Blackmagic Design website, and make sure that your footage isn't like too high a frame rate. It can't be above 60, I believe, on the imported. Don't quote me on that. I think some of the support has changed, but that's just a file type limitation because you're using the free version. If you use the studio version, it'll support all major file types. But in the free version, it's like MP4, HEVC, H.265, simple MOV files. It's a very like the most common that aren't too intricate, ProRes, no RAW, things like that. So just be careful, not 12-bit, not too high frame rate on certain things that can't be supported. So just make sure that you are using something that's supported by the version that you have. If you still have the free version, you want to use an MOV file, you can use a converter and you can swap it over. I will show you how to do that. There is a standalone feature that comes with Resolve that'll allow you to convert, but you can convert if you're inside of DaVinci Resolve, you can change it. Let me just say really quickly, how to unlock the edit panel in the iPad. That's a great question. If you're using the iPad version, what you want to do is attach a keyboard. Go on YouTube. They have a bunch of videos of this. I haven't covered it myself. But if you attach a keyboard, you can open up the keyboard shortcut section. And once you do that, you can then open up the all the different pages. But you have to attach a keyboard, so make sure you have like a Bluetooth keyboard enabled. And then you want to open up the keyboard shortcuts section, which is something I'm going to take a second to show you right now while I'm here. A lot of these different things, like I said, if I'm here in the timeline and I want to like cut the footage where the playhead is, I do Control B, and look at me, I've sliced right where the playhead was. That was awesome. But people go like, well, what if I want to change the shortcuts? How do I know what the keyboard shortcuts are? Well, if you go up to the very upper left, on Mac, I think you have to click the Apple. On PC, you'll just see DaVinci Resolve. If you click on that and go down to, let me find it. There it is. Keyboard customization. You can click on that and it will open up a keyboard customization. Let me get my face out of here. Section that looks just like this. And it's got it lists all of the keyboard shortcuts for your OS. If you're on Mac, if you're on Linux, if you're on PC, it'll show you it gives you the ability to search for them. It does all the cool things that you would want it to do. Whoop, hold on a second. It allows you, there's a search function. So it'll tell you like, oh, change a clip duration. For me, that is Control+D. Change a clip speed. Oh, that's just hit the R and that will change the speed. Enable a clip or disable a clip. All these different things. You have the ability to search for those features. And you also have the ability, this is an interesting thing, if you want to change the keyboard shortcuts. So if I'm here and I go, oh, I don't want to, let me just hover on this. Change, let me do this. I'm going to zoom in. This says Control+D is the change clip duration. Well, I don't want that. Maybe I just want it to be, maybe I want it to be Control plus, something else. What I can do is I can just X that out so that now that window is blank. And I can either do it on my keyboard or I can use the keyboard right above here. And I can say, oh, I want it to be Control+A, maybe, right? And as long as that's not assigned to something else, I can do, oh, I want Control+A. I can add that in here or I can do it in my keyboard as long as nothing else is assigned. If you see, if something else is already assigned, it'll say, no, that's already using that shortcut. So you have to be careful of that, but you can change all of those shortcuts to something that makes sense to you. Like sometimes you may want to change, like if something requires 3 keys as a combination and you go, I don't want to do that. I just would nice if I could just cut by hitting like that one keyboard shortcut. You can do that. You can change the keyboard shortcuts to whatever you want that makes sense for you. And coming from something like CapCut, you might already have certain keyboard shortcuts. So you go, well, I used to use CapCut and when I hit B, it would cut my footage. Well, you can do that. You can change it to just be right up in here. So it's DaVinci Resolve, go down to keyboard customization, opens up that panel. You can search for ones you don't know, and then you can find them, and then you can change them. Really great functionality. But if you're in here and you're on the iPad, if you open that up, look up online. It'll allow you to see the display for each one of those things. I think if I'm on here, I think I can actually kind of show you. I believe it is if you scroll down to panels. I'm trying to remember. I think it's in panels. It's either panels or display. I did it on my own, and it doesn't stay that way. If you scroll down, I believe it's these ones here, like Fusion page. I have to remember, but double check that. And you can enable it from, that's how you do it. And once you go into the iPad version unlock with a keyboard, you can unlock them and you can put, you basically create keyboard shortcuts for them. And then when you go back and open, you can go like, whatever, F1, and it opens suddenly the Fusion page is available. That's a great question though. I'll try to make a video on that to make sure it's for people. I have something to talk about that. Let me go back through. I've got some in here. My mobile bicycle repair 505 is this the free version or paid version? I'm currently using the studio version, but if you opened up the free version, it would look the same as this. If you were on the edit page, you would see all of these same things. There's virtually no difference between the free version and the paid version visually when you're sitting in here using it. All of the things I've shown you so far are available on the free and paid version. Where you'll see a difference is things like when I go down to some of the effects down here. If you go down, you'll see there will be fewer effects available over here. If you go to video transitions on the free version, you won't have quite as many transitions as I have. Things like that, real simple changes, but literally 80-85% of the software is identical. And when you look at it, without actually looking in the lower left corner, because you can see down here, it says I've got DaVinci Resolve Studio 19 in the lower corner. That tells you the one you have. You wouldn't know if you're on the free version or the paid version, because that's how much stuff they give away for free. Virtually all the stuff is identical until you get into like some of the super advanced features and some of the stuff working behind the scenes. Okay. So, definitely try the free version. There's no limitation. It doesn't, it's not like 7 days and then you have to start paying. It's lifetime free. There's no watermarks. You can use all the functionality. And it does everything you need it to do for most edits. I mean, when I say most edits, it's very high functioning. So you should be very happy with it. Make sure I didn't miss anything in here. Okay, so a couple of things I want to talk to you about while we're down in here. So we're moving stuff around in here, right? I've shown you how to bring footage down in, just drag it from your media pool. I showed you how to import stuff up here. You can click on all your different files that we've created up here. That's the media pool up in the upper left. That's where we just say import media. We import things that we need. And then once they're up in our media pool, you can bring them down into your timeline however you want. Really, really simple stuff. Okay. And then everything that you select down here in your timeline, the upper right inspector, if I get my ugly mug out of the way, is going to give you the options to work with it. Now I showed you, let's say we have a clip right here that has video and audio attached. I had gone up to the inspector and showed you how some of the functions worked for spinning it, rotating it, changing it around, zooming in and out. When you go to that same upper right inspector, you're going to notice when you have clips that have audio and video, you're going to start seeing some options, right? If it was just a video track, you'd mostly see this and a couple of the other options. You wouldn't see audio. Because this clip has audio attached, we have a audio tab in the inspector, right? If I applied any effects to it, the effects tab would light up. If I had put any transitions on it, the transition tab would light up. And that gives me deeper control of all of those things, okay? Right now, this clip just says video and audio. So those are the two sections that are enabled. So if I clicked on the audio tab, did you see? Let me see if I can see it. I just clicked on the audio tab right here while I had that clip selected. And here's where you can control the volume of that clip. Here's where you can control, and that volume is clip level. It'll literally change the waveform. So let me back out here. If I grab that volume level, watch the clip down in the timeline. Can you see the waveform expanding? If I have it turned down, it'll look like that, way down. And if I crank it up, you will see the waveform has now expanded. So I'm not just turning up the track volume. I'm literally taking the clip and I'm expanding the volume on it from a clip level. So if you happen to have a clip that's really quiet and you go like, wow, all my other audio is really loud, but this one clip in my timeline, the audio is like really, it didn't capture it really well. It's very quiet. I was far away from the mic. You can turn the clip level up. Like it's almost like taking the recorded level of the clip in the wave and cranking it up. And you can always reset. It does all these other features that some of these are paid, some of these are not. You can pan left and right. These voice isolations, the voice isolation is available in the free version. The music remixer that does things like you can grab a music track and you can pull the vocal out of it or just hear the drums. That's some of the paid version stuff. But your pitch, you can change the pitch of it right there. You can change the speed. There's a quick EQ down below it right here. If you look, let me see. Let me get down below here a bit. There's a quick EQ that you can do some simple EQing with. It's a 4-band parametric, low, mid. Did I lose? Am I still alive? All right, cool. I hope I didn't lose you. Looks like something just kicked off on me. Let me just make sure I have to reload. My YouTube kicked me off. Let me make sure I still have my stream. I'm still here. Okay, looks like I'm still here, I think. Make sure I don't lose it. Okay, I'm here. It just kicked me. YouTube kicked me off. It just said, like, oh, sorry. But the server threw me off. Don't do that.
It actually kicked me off earlier too.
Yeah, YouTube's having a moment, see? All right, so like I said, down in that right, just simple stuff. That's a 4-band parametric. Wow, that was skippy. EQ, that's low mids, that's mid-high, and that's high. So you can do real simple stuff in the inspector here for the audio. The Fairlight page is where you'll do advanced audio, so don't let that feel like this basic stuff, turning up the volume, panning stuff around. Real simple stuff you can do right here in this page. Good, thank you. I'm still streaming. I appreciate you letting me know. Sometimes I get thrown off. It just like YouTube just said, oh, shucks, no connection. Yeah, so real simple stuff. This page, if you are a CapCut user, come to the edit page. It's the 3rd page in. Again, like I said before, there are 7 pages in total from, let me get over here first. There are 7 pages in total. At the bottom option, media for bringing stuff in, cut page for doing real bulk cuts and getting things locked out without super picky effects and stuff. That's really for bulk cutting and getting things locked in quickly. Edit page is going to feel just like CapCut to you, very familiar. Fusion is going to be for composing. That uses nodes. We are not getting into that today. That's for heavy VFX. That's going to be like After Effects is for Adobe products. It's going to do, that's where you can do crazy effects. You can do simple stuff. You can do simple masking, and you can do like create your own like lower third text graphics and things. But you can do super high-end stuff. 3D spaces, you can do, you need to have like lightning coming out of your fingers, and that's the kind of stuff you can do in Fusion. Those things, don't freak yourself out with that yet. Focus on the basics. Come in and learn all the basics. How do I get footage in? How do I set up my project settings for the type of project I want? How do I get the footage in? How do I bring it into the timeline? How do I cut it? How do I slice it up? How do I move it around? Simple things like that, okay? Then when you get over here, you're going to see the color page, and that's going to be that's specifically for controlling color and masking and things like that. Fairlight is your audio. And lastly, you're going to have your deliver page. We'll get to that in a minute. I want to show you a couple more things here in this main edit page, because they can come in really handy for you. One of the most overlooked sections is this right here. These are just your individual tracks. And they have some simple functionality to it, right? They have things like a lock. I think everyone knows, like, well, I've worked on, DaVinci, on whatever, CapCut or some other editing software, and you can lock your tracks, right? If you lock it, that means it won't move around, or you can't cut it or accidentally delete it. If it's locked, it's locked. Okay, people know that. This one over to the right here is the track enable. The far right option right there is the track enable. So let's say I wanted to disable this main track that I have here. Okay, let me see if I can do this. Let me see if it'll zoom in. Okay, that right there, if I click on that, it will disable this track, and you'll see how the track gets kind of fuzzy. It gets kind of zoned out there because I just disabled it here. I basically turned that track off. That's the on-off switch for each of your tracks, your video tracks, on and off. For audio, it's a very similar thing. You're going to see that it has a lock feature. You can lock your track. It has a mute feature. Right now I actually have this track muted, so in case I actually start playing, you don't hear my audio. And then it has an S, and that's, if anyone has done any audio engineering, S is solo, and solo means it's going to allow you to bring up just that track. Like, I want to hear just that audio track, hit the solo button, the S, and then it'll mute all the other tracks and only play that one track. So you can approach it from different angles. You want to mute one track and hear the rest, or do you want to solo one track and mute all the rest? There's all these different buttons that you can do. But one button that I swear most people get more confused and overlook than anyone else, or than any other option here, is the one that's actually right between them. And this one's a little funky. Let me show you. There is this option. Let me see how close I can get here. I want to see if I can get really, that's good. So on any given track, whether it's a video track or an audio track, there is this button that has, it looks like a square with an arrow pointing left and right. That is called your auto track selector. And what that does is it's almost like a lock button, but it's more like a track enabled functionality. If you have, let's say you're cutting footage in your timeline and you have 6 or 7 tracks all stacked on top of each other. If you have the auto track selector on for every one of those tracks, that will allow all those tracks to cut. The feature, the functionality that you're trying to do, as long as the auto track selector is on, it's telling DaVinci Resolve, hey, whatever I'm trying to do in the timeline, make sure it happens to this track too. If you have the auto track selector off, then things that you do in your timeline will not affect that track. The track isn't locked. It's just decided, hey, let me show you an example in real time. I've got one video and one audio here, okay? I'm gonna bring down another video and another audio track. Let me make sure I'm sort of right here in the timeline, right above it. Let me mute this so you're not hearing that. Okay, so now I basically have, very simple. I've got a video track and that's the audio attached, a second video track, and that's the audio. This is 1, and this is number 2, and this is the audio for 2. Now, if you notice, I've got the auto track selector on for this video track, the auto track selector on for this one. I've got the auto track selector on for the bottom one, but this audio one, I do not have the auto track selector turned on. Okay. I am going to now, you see the playhead is sitting right underneath my fat face right here. It's going right down here. I am going to hit Control B, which should cut everything in my timeline. Let's see what happens. Control B. Hey, cool. I can see a bunch of stuff got cut, but let me move the playhead out of the way. Let me zoom in. Whoop, there we go. Look what happened. This track has a slice in it. This track has a slice in it. This track has a slice in it, but the one that had the auto track selector turned off does not have a slice in it. This will also apply to things like your ripple delete, when you remove something and you want the entire, if you like cut something out of a project and you want to delete it and have everything else slap back together and close up. If you have the auto track selector turned off for any of the tracks, they will not ripple delete. If you're trying to stretch things, move things around, use different functionality, and it's not doing what it should, you probably have the auto track selector turned off for that track, and it's not going to do the things that you want it to do when applying timeline functionality. So that's another way where sometimes you don't want to lock a track, but you don't want it to be cut while other things are being cut. You can go, let me turn the auto track selector off for that track, and it will expand to other functionality. But it's one of those buttons that I think people overlook and go, I didn't even know that that was a thing. And it affects a lot of higher tier functionality. And we'll cover some of that. I covered on my channel. I don't want to get too lost in all the features. I do want to keep this fairly simple for people who are just starting to use Resolve. The more you use it, you're going to find there are a lot of hidden features. I guarantee I can show you. How many people in here, by a show of hands, give me a thumbs up. How many people think they have a pretty good idea of what's going on the edit page? For Resolve users who are hanging out today, if you've been using Resolve for a while, if you feel fairly comfortable in the edit page and go, I kind of get it. I know how the preview window, I know how the media structure works. I know how the effects work. I know how the inspector works. I know how the little mixer on the side. I know most of the features. Give me a thumbs up if you think that you feel pretty confident in the edit page. I just want to get a feel from the people we have in the chat right now. I'm going to show you something that will surprise you. See, I'm already getting like Dimitri says, yeah, I got one. Pierre says, yep, thumbs up. Tumbleweed Production, yeah, I'm pretty good about it. Jerry says, yeah, Jerry's smart. He says, thumbs up, but I learn new stuff all the time. Velocity Gaming says, me. Let me show you some of the silly things that you may not even be aware of that are hidden right in front of your face. How many of you, let me zoom in if I can, have ever tried right-clicking on the stop button? Seriously, this is one of those things I found accidentally. I went, wait a minute, what is this? You can right click on the stop button and look what happens. There's a functionality hidden there. Stop and go to last position. Hidden inside, unlabeled. Why would you ever right click on the stop button? You can here. And this is a killer feature. I use this all the time and it's hidden. If you select that, right click and go, yes, stop and go to the last location. If that is selected, you'll see once I click on it again, you'll see it put a little check mark next to it. Watch what this functionality does. Let me turn it off first. Let me turn it off. I'm going to hit play. Watch my playhead. It plays, I'm playing, and then it stops. And the playhead stopped where I hit stop, right? Once I hit stop, as far as the playhead had gone, that's where the playhead stops. But what if I'm working on a section and I keep trying to get it right? And I have to keep rewinding, and I don't want to keep rewinding. I can turn on that stop and go to the last position, and what that'll do is I can put my playhead here, and I hit the space bar, by the way, is the keyboard shortcut for play and stop. So space bar on your keyboard. I'm going to start playing, and then I go, okay, the audio still sounds weird. Stop, look where the playhead just went back to. It went back to the exact position it was at before I hit play. So it's almost like a return to zero, not zero, but wherever you had the playhead. So if you're working on a section and you're color correcting or you're doing some kind of twisting around and you don't want to have to keep rewinding or looping, just right click on the stop button, which is a stupid place to hide it. Click that on and it'll always go back to where the playhead was when you started. Every time you hit the space bar and stop it, it'll go back to there. And it's a really great way to work on sections of your timeline and go back and go, okay, now that I've got it. And then once you get that right, what you can do is you can just turn it back off and it'll keep playing through as normal. That's one of those things I use all the time that you wouldn't even know was there, but you're going to find DaVinci Resolve has tons of these hidden features that even users who have been using the software for forever go, how is it I didn't know that was there? And it's because they constantly add these things in that tweak around and change things, and you'll find them every now and then. And I do this on my channel. For people who are newer to the channel, I've got long form content that take it really slow. It's very edited, that will get you through the learning process of learning to use Resolve. I do live streams like this where I'll talk to you guys and I'll show you things and we'll go interactive, where it's a little less structured, but I really try to focus on taking questions and talking to you guys. And there is, and then there's some, I do a whole series of shorts. I do DaVinci Resolve for noobs that are all vertical video shorts that are all very short, a minute and a half. And if I've got hundreds of them. And if you need quick tips and you just want to learn things really fast, quick features, then definitely follow that playlist through. I've got them all linked down in the description of this particular live stream. So you can get in there and you can do any of those things, start learning at the way, the pace, the style you like to learn at. There's a question there that Igor said, Igor? Let me get that right, pal. It was you who said, oh, I'm sorry, it was AWACS Rocket said, is there a shortcut? You have to check on remember I showed you how to find the keyboard shortcuts? I don't think there is for that one, for that particular one, but if you go back to the DaVinci Resolve, click on that, open up the keyboard shortcuts customization, you can find it if it's in there. Anything that's available you can find in there and you can customize it to whatever you want. But if it's available, it'll be in that panel. Let's see, what are we going on here? I needed this, Igor. Good. I'm glad that I'm hoping this is helpful. Am I moving too fast for you guys? I'm really trying to show some of the basic things that are going on here. I feel really badly for a lot of people who are using CapCut and suddenly find themselves without a functional software. I don't even know if it's functional, but they've taken it off the market anyway. So I don't know how much support there's going to be. That could change. New administration's coming in. He might turn everything back again, but for the moment, people can't wait. We got to make content, and there's a great free version of Resolve, so I wanted to get you started. Get in there, download it, open up the edit page like we've done here, and just start. Don't let anything slow you down. Start importing stuff, set up your project. That's the first thing you're going to do. Open up that gear cog in the lower right, get in there and set up your project settings for what you want, right? Set your frame rate. Cool, I'm ready to go. Then once you get that, just save it. Go up to the upper left up here and go, okay, cool, I got the media pool turned on. I got these open windows. I can just right click it here and I can start importing whatever I need for footage. Cool, got that. Once you have it, you can grab them, you can bring them down into your timeline. One of the things I will say is if you do not have it confuses people. Let me see if I can get this right and say it in a way that makes sense. I'm going to remove all of the things in my timeline right now. Let me see if I can get rid of all these. Okay. And I am going to, let me see, you go away, you go away, you go away, delete empty tracks. I will always have 2 tracks to begin with. The minute you bring tracks down into your timeline, that's when, remember I grabbed an asset, I brought a video clip in, and the minute I did that, I brought it down, regardless of whether I delete the video clips afterwards. It'll always maintain video 1 and audio 1. It's created a timeline. One of the things that might be a little different for CapCut users or people coming from a different software is usually you always have a timeline there and enabled. It's just that band across the bottom. You go, that's my timeline. Because DaVinci Resolve can run multiple timelines, it'll be blank. If you bring something in, it'll open up the tracks for it. The minute you drag something down, it's like, okay, now I have tracks. But what you're going to notice that's a little different is up in the upper left, it actually creates a timeline. So just like you have your footage and maybe your audio and your images, you're going to get another little square, but it's going to say timeline under it as I scribble all over it. And that is actually the timeline that you've created here. But because you can create more than one timeline, that's going to allow you to, you're always going to have them up in that media pool. So you might have 2 or 3 different timelines going on. A lot of times we'll use it, we'll use it for, like I said, making vertical video and horizontal video at the same time. Or maybe we're doing a different edit where you go like, I've got this edit, I want to take this project and I want to change it a bit, but I don't want to lose the original project. You can duplicate the timeline, which is really, really helpful. You will find that, let me do this, in your timeline. Let me see if I can find this now. I have to bring something down into this. Okay. If you're down in here, you have the ability to control all of these timeline functions. Let me do this. Volume down, and you can actually, I gotta show you the block here. I gotta get this right here. Remember I showed you this is the thing that controls being able to move your footage up in the screen. If you click on that, it's the transform window that you can flip things around just by clicking in the screen. Just below it, there's another thing that's grayed out, and this little square icon controls all your timeline settings, okay? And if you expand that, let me see if I can just scroll in here. This is where you're going to see some other options. You'll be able to see stacked timelines. You can do more than one. You can change the view of how the video clips are displayed. Should it show the thumbnail? Should it not show an image? Should it look like a film strip? Some people like the playhead to move across the timeline, and some people like to have a fixed playhead dead center, and then all of the clips move along while the playhead stays dead center. You can change to a fixed playhead. You can do all these things, but especially you can change the track height of the video and the audio here and preset them. So if I grab those sliders, let me do that here, and I go, oh, I want to make the video track height much taller. As it gets taller, it also gets like a little bit longer looking. And I can make those track heights smaller, same with the audio too. You can control the height there. But if you click on that display stacked timelines, I can't even say it. It is display stacked timelines. You have to enable that. And what you will see is once you've done that, you now have timeline 1 as a tab right above your timeline. And there's actually a plus button right here. And you could say, oh, I want to add a separate timeline here. There's different ways to do that. You can either click the plus button and add another timeline. You could even right click on your existing timeline right here. And if you right click on that, you'll see it has the option to duplicate that timeline. So maybe I want to change, I've got this project pretty much all put together, but I want to play with it. I'm going to edit it a little bit differently. I can just go, oh, I don't know, I'll just duplicate that timeline. And what you'll see now is you now have 2 timelines open that you can toggle back and forth between, left and right, timeline. This is where DaVinci Resolve really starts to shine in the edit page, is the ability to work on multiple timelines at once, multiple projects at the same time. It gives you all of these functionality here. And the minute you enable those timelines, if you go all the way, sorry for my jumpy screen, I'm going to try to get this right. There we go. All the way to the right, way over here. Once you've enabled this timeline feature, you'll see there's a little folder option that has a plus button. And if you click on that one, what it'll do is it'll now stack your timelines. So I'm now looking at, I'll get this right. I'm looking at timeline on top of timeline, 2 timelines and 1 timeline, which is really awesome to work on multiple things, and they play separately and you can compare things. This is even really good if you have something going on one timeline and you want to drag it into your other timeline. You can literally left click drag, you can right click copy and then paste down into there. It does all these neat things inside of the edit page that are things that you may not be used to seeing in something like CapCut, because it really takes it to the next level. So you can always add timelines. You can turn them back off too. If you go back up to that, if you happen to do this, by the way, let me see if I can show you. You will see over here, if you do stack timelines, there's another one, and you can now X out of them. So the controls to shut them back off now appear over there as well, which is kind of cool. I can click that and all the timelines go away. Let's go back. I've deleted all those timelines, and now I just have an open project, and I could go, all right, I want to start with whatever timeline 1, and I can bring timeline 1 down there and start again. So there's all these abilities to do all kinds of crazy stuff. Effects. Let me see if I can show you some other stuff too while I'm here. We didn't really talk too much about effects. Some of you are going to be looking for the ability to put some effects on. Let me grab a piece of footage of, I don't know, people. Why not, right? Let me grab Bubble Girl again. So there's Bubble Girl. Over in your lower left here, if we go, whoops, edit. What did I just do? Redo. Go back there, Bubble Girl. Down in when you have the effects panel. Now we talked about how there are video transitions, there are audio transitions. Let's go right to titles. Right below that is titles. If you want to put text into your project. This is one that confuses some people. Click on that titles option. Let me go right to the top. And when you click on titles, you're going to, wow, that's zoomed in. That is way zoomed in. Let me get back over here. There we go. That's better. You're going to have all kinds of options that do, this really goes on forever. Different types of text, lower thirds, all kinds of crazy stuff that you want to do. But your main type of text that you're going to want to use is text plus. There is an option for text. And a lot of times I'll be talking to people and they go, Daniel, I'm working on a project. I brought in some text and it's not acting the way I want it to act. It won't do things like right on screen. DaVinci Resolve has 2 different types of text. Basic text is just the text feature. It has this, if you're just trying to put some text on screen, it sort of doesn't have all the functionality. Text plus is going to be the one that allows you to do more with the text, get it to right on screen, spin around, crazy stuff. It's a little more versatile. So if you're going to add text to your project, what you're going to want to do is just grab the text plus, drag it up. You can either put it into a track above yours. Let me see, I'll drag it up above. Boom. Now I have a text plus up above here. That's how you would add text. Simple as that, is just drag it in, or you can go add a track. I show you how to add tracks. You can add additional tracks and drag your text in, okay? So you're just dragging in text above your main footage. So that'll make sure that that whatever text you got going on is going to be obviously above. You want it above the track of the footage. And if I click on that text one, you can see the minute I bring it in, it just says custom title in the middle. And if you go to the upper right, you will see the inspector has these all these options. Here's where you can change what's written in the text. You can change the font. You can change the size. You can add shading to it. All of these different things that you can do. Very versatile. Let me expand this. That expands right there. If you see, it goes all the way down to the anchoring, the justification. It's got a write-on feature where you can keyframe in. Maybe you wanted to write the text on screen. I've got tons of videos covering that. But all your text controls are up here. So if I just want to do something simple and say like, we'll call it, let's go with CapCut. That's the word of the day. I put the word CapCut in the middle. Right? I just changed that right in the text box. I changed the word to CapCut. Apparently I'm just random acts of capitalization. And now I can go down and I can grab the size and I can increase the size of it. I can change the font. Maybe we want to go, I always like impact. Impact is a good one. Let's go impact. And now I've got text on screen just by doing that. And as long as I have the transform, remember the good old transform window down here, this one right here. If I have that turned on, then I'm right into the spot where I can go, okay, let me reshrink, change the size of my text, put it where I want, put it up to the right, up to the left, spin it, rotate it. You can do all that stuff right on screen with that transform option available. So that's how you're going to bring in text. Really, really simple. On the left, most of the thing, text, transitions, titles, effects, those are all going to be in this lower left section here. And some of these effects you won't have that I have because I have the studio version. But even simple stuff, if you just click on effects and you go, well, what do I want to do to the footage? Maybe let me move this out of the way. Let's put CapCut down here for a moment. Maybe there's something I want to do like, I don't know, pick something like this. If there's a track selected and I want to add night vision, this is going to give me that night vision effect. And if you notice, I'm doing the same thing here. Remember how I showed you before that you can just hover your mouse over that and move left to right, like with the transitions to preview them. Whatever track you have selected and wherever your playhead is, you can grab like the night vision and scroll left and right. That's all I'm doing, and it's showing you what it might look like when you put it in there. Noise distortion, you can see it starts warping it. Outer stroke, let me see. An outer stroke would be, outer stroke is a great one. You'll use that a lot. Outer stroke is, let me drag that onto the text. I'm going to put an outer stroke in the, let me get my face out of here. That's your outline. So an outer stroke, let's change the color to black. And as you can see here, now my text has a black outline and even a drop shadow. So all of these different things that you're going to want to add in there, drop shadows, outer strokes, you name it, blur, anything you want to do to your footage to, you know, add simple effects, the kind of obvious stuff. Those simple effects are all going to be down in that lower left section. But those are your audio effects, your video effects, your transitions, your audio transitions. There are audio transitions like, you know, you can cross fade between two pieces of audio, things like that. Those are your basics. Those are all your basics of how you're going to get started here inside of DaVinci Resolve. Bring your footage in, bring it into the media pool, bring it down into the timeline. Anything selected in the timeline is going to show up in the upper right inspector, so you can go a deeper dive into those things, whether it's text, audio, or video. Your lower left is going to have all your effects, all your, you know, transitions, all your video effects, all your audio effects, generators. There's a generator section I want to show you too really quickly, because sometimes it comes in handy. A lot of times I'll do something like, okay, here's what I'm dealing with right now. I've got, you know, a girl and some text on top, and maybe I want to put like a color block, right? Like maybe I want to put that on a block of color. You can do things like, if you go over to the generators option, let me scroll up a little bit. These are more like color forms. And if you look over here, I've got generators selected. They have things like, you know, grayscale, solid color, windows. You'll be able to play with these. But if I just grab that, I'm going to move the text up one track, left click, drag upward, puts it in another track. And I'm going to drag a solid color over and put it underneath. Select that solid color, and I can do all the things we talked about before. I still have that enabled. I can sit here and go, I want to put black behind the word CapCut. And with it selected, I'm going to go up to the upper right inspector, and I'm going to use the crop feature to crop up the, whoop, I've got the wrong thing selected. Hold on a second. Don't do that, silly. I just want this one selected, and I'm going to crop up the bottom of this one a bit. Let me see if it'll let me do it. Pull that crop up. Okay, now I've done that. This one, I got to reset the crop of my main footage. So now I have, like, you know, CapCut with a black box behind it. Very simple, easy stuff. And you can start moving things around and go like, okay, I want that down in the corner. I want that box of black to be behind it. You know, these are the kind of things that you can do very simply by accessing all that stuff in your lower left. That lower left is going to give you all those little tools, titles, colors, transitions, all those things down in your lower left. And then when you've got something kind of put together, you've got it built, right? Now, there's a couple things you can do. What you could do is go up to this upper right, and you see where it says quick export. That'll allow you to do a fast export. If you click that, you'll see a window opens up, and it's going to give you all the basics. Like, oh, you want to upload to YouTube, you want to do a basic H.264 or H.265, high efficiency export. It'll just kind of grab the basics here of what your project is, 24 frames per second, 4K, no big deal, and it'll export it. But if you want to do exports like most of us do, a little more pro, what you're going to do is you're going to go over to this last page. Remember we talked about how there's 7 pages? Your last page over here, they call it deliver. Instead of export, it's called deliver. And if you click on that, it's going to look like this, all right? This is the last thing that you probably need to learn to get yourself going, all right? What you're seeing here, let me break this down. Really simple. In the upper left section, these are all of your export controls. This is where you're going to, as I just wrote all over it so you can't see anything, right? How good am I? This is where you're going to decide to name your export. This is where you can browse to decide where you want the file saved on your system. This is where you can, there's 3 different tabs here. The main ones you're going to use are video and audio. You can decide what file type you want. Do you want it QuickTime? Do you want it to be an MP4? If you're uploading to YouTube, you typically want MP4. What's the codec? Is it H.264? You can decide the resolution. I have it set to timeline resolution, so whatever is going on, you can see exactly what it's going to be. You can customize it too. Right now, mine is set for the 4K and at 24 frames per second, so it's going with what it knows the project is. But I can change that if I wanted it to be something else. You can. I have it set to automatic best. It does everything down to keyframes, rate control, but basically this can get really in depth. You can even optimize exports for places like YouTube down in here. It gets super, super advanced, but you don't need to know all that right now. You just basically need to go up here, and the main thing you need to know is the very top section is going to decide the type of export you want to do. I always keep it on the default custom export. That's what I typically export in the most, because it gives me all of the ability to change every one of these the way I want them to be. The other thing I use is a little slider up here. If you're in a situation where you might be maybe just want to export just the audio, you have the option to switch over to a different functionality and go, oh, I want to take this whole project and I just want to just export the audio from it. And you could choose that option, and then it won't render the video. It'll just send out the audio. But if you're in the custom export section, let me see if I can show you this. I'm trying not to give you a heart attack with the screen grabs. The custom export, you'll see on the video tab, there's a little option you can tick right here that says export video. And if you click that, it'll make sure it exports the video along with this project. If you untick that box, it won't export the video. And the same is true with the audio option. If I switch over to the audio tab here and I go up to here, let me see if I can get zoomed in. I will get there yet, my friends. There is an export audio option right here. And you can untick that and go, hey, I want to send this out, but I don't want the audio attached. Just untick that box and it will not export the audio. And then you can decide all of the options that go along with this, including audio normalization. Most of the time, what I do is I will name my project. I will find the file location. I will come down to this video option, make sure that this is on. I will usually pick MP4, H.264, and I leave these all set for whatever my project was. And then I am good to go. I check the audio tab to make sure I do have audio enabled. And then all you need to do when you're done with those settings is come down here. Let me see if I can get in here close enough. I'm sorry for all this jumping around, my friends. All right, let me get it. There it is. Right down at the very bottom, there's this option that says Add to Render Queue. Now, this is an important one. Once you have everything set, what you're going to do is click that Add to Render Queue. And once you, I haven't set the location of where it's going to go. Let me just say, okay, I'm going to send this to here, and I'm going to call it, CapCut. I've done that stuff. I go Add to Render Queue, and if you look in the upper right, come on, be my friend. There we go. You will see it says Job 1, and it's now added it up here. And that just puts it in a holding pattern and says, okay, that's Job 1. He set it all up. It's ready to go. It's gonna export this project exactly to the specifications that I have decided I want it to be. And it'll just sit there, because you might want to do more than one render. You might be working on 2 timelines and you go, well, I have another timeline that I want to address as well. That's a different 9x16, because you can create a bunch of different jobs for it to do and then have it do them all at once. But if you just have one job, I just want to export this one project I just worked on, one timeline, one simple export. Once you got that selected, just go down and hit Render All. And what it'll start doing is it'll just export that project. And if you look in the upper right, let me see if I can do this. That one's already done. That's how quick that one is. Let me get it. You will see it went right through it. And right here, it says job completed. And it's all done. It was as simple as that. This is something you want to make sure you spend a little time playing around with, the deliver page, because that's where you're going to want to fine tune things like, what type of file type I want. I've seen sometimes I'll tell people, hey, you can export audio only using the custom export. Just untick the export video section. But they haven't changed the file type, and the file type says like MOV, and it doesn't export as an audio file type. So spend a little time in there just getting used to like the file types and the export settings, but it shouldn't be too complicated. Bring your footage in, bring it in the timeline, cut it up, throw some effects, add some titles, use the upper right inspector to move things around. And then once you're done, head over to the deliver page, set up your export, tell the software where on your computer you want to save it, and then export that project. I will say to you, some people like to export directly to YouTube. You can do that. It has the features in here, but I will tell you, please don't do that. 2 reasons. One, you always want to have a working file of your completed project, one that you can reference and look at before you upload it and go, does this look right? Did I do it right? Did I make any mistakes? Do I have any black spots where I left an empty frame in my project? I want to quickly review it and make sure it's okay. The number one reason is that YouTube is not a file storage system. It is a file sharing system. It will share your video, but YouTube makes no guarantees if your video gets deleted or your channel gets taken down. You lose access to all your projects. Every video you've ever made, they will not give them back to you. So don't use it as a storage system. Use it as a sharing system, and make sure you export your projects locally so you have the completed file if you ever need to re-upload it, if you're in the middle of an upload. Remember, if you're uploading and if you're exporting and uploading to YouTube at the same time, you're asking your system to do twice the work. You're not just exporting, but you're also leaning into your internet connection and having your computer send it up to a platform out on the internet. And if something goes wrong, it's working twice as hard, and if it collapses, you have to start from the beginning. Whereas if you're just exporting locally and you go to upload to YouTube and say YouTube glitches, you can just kill that export, grab the completed file and do it again. And it's a lot less stress that you're asking it to do one thing at a time. So I always say export locally to your system. Have those files, have those completed versions for your records, and then bring them up to YouTube or Instagram, TikTok. God rest TikTok. Maybe it'll come back. Wherever you're going to be sending them to. But make sure you have finished versions of that. I moved pretty quickly here. I covered a lot. Is there anything that I have missed? I'm looking at the chat. I'm looking at questions. Renegade's Garage did ask, on DaVinci Resolve, I always have a problem adding transitions, and sometimes it will not let me upload my videos after I spent all that time editing it. It says the path can't be found. You mean uploading to, where do you mean uploading directly to YouTube? If you're saying uploading, which is different than exporting, that's why I always export locally. Find a spot, export to one of your files on your system somewhere, or external drive, wherever you want to send that. And then once it's done, then go to YouTube and upload from YouTube. It's going to be an easier way to do that. Adding transitions, we talked about why they might not be working. Feel free to watch again. I talked about why transitions sometimes don't work and what you can do to make sure they do. Let's see. Sacophonous said, Megan, do you know if there's ever a time of year that the speed editor will go on sale? I'm interested in purchasing one. I'm aware it comes with a free full version of Studio. I have not seen the speed editor go on sale. DaVinci Resolve, because they give away an entirely free version that is better than any other free version of any other software for editing out there. It is an advanced level editor. They've never really given away discounts on stuff. They are a hardware company first, and it's rare that things go on sale. That being said, this past Christmas season, DaVinci Resolve Studio went on sale for the first time ever, and it went down from like $299 to I think $249. So they gave like $50 off, I think, of the price, and it lasted for about 3 weeks. So if there's ever going to be a sale, pay attention around Black Friday or the holidays, and that's the only time you'll see a sale. As Sacophonous mentioned, DaVinci Resolve, Blackmagic, is a hardware company. So if you're thinking about buying a studio license, go to their website. They have package deals where if you buy one of their hardware pieces, they will throw in a full studio license for some of the things you buy. Not all of them, but some of them. If you buy a speed editor, the speed editor alone is $395. It's like a mini keyboard with a scroll wheel, and it does all these fast shortcuts. Great working in the cut page, goes super fast. It's $395. If you buy the speed editor, it comes with a free version, lifetime license to DaVinci Resolve. Now you get the speed editor and $300 worth of software thrown in for free. So it's like, wow, that's, it cost me an extra $95, but I got this really cool editor, and they gave me the software lifetime license. So I always say, look for some of the bundles. They do have bundles. And if you ever have any questions about that, I'll make sure I point you to the right link or whatever if you're looking for a specific bundle. But don't wait for sales. If they're going to happen, you're going to see them around Christmas. And I usually don't see it on their hardware, just on the software we've seen. Let's see. There was a super chat from David Ruiz. Did I miss that one, Megan? $4.99. I didn't see the question that came with it. Oh, just a super chat. Well, thank you very much, my friend David Ruiz, for the super chat. I appreciate it. I think we've got most of the questions here. Did I miss any other ones? Let me just look at the chat here in case there's something I'm missing. Hey, there's Ed. I haven't seen you in a while. Ed, flash in your pan. Good to see you, pal. I'm looking at, I use CapCut for my editing videos, but I'm thinking about going to DaVinci Resolve. Says Anfield Road layout in the loft. Yeah, give it a shot. It's free. The great thing about it is it's free, and you can download it today. They have a studio version, but you can get started and decide, hey, I don't have to commit to anything. I can use the free version. If I think this is something I want, I can edit with this. And if I really keep loving it and I want to have a faster performing with more functionality, I can get the studio version later. So you'll never lose anything by giving it a shot and testing it out. Let me say one more thing before I leave. I have to, let me see. Oh, how that was a question that Shredder asked. Did you show how to restore from minimized screen? Let me see if I can replicate it. I don't think I've ever had that issue, but let me go. Typically what's going to happen when you have this open, here I am. Let me go in the upper right. Let me go in, actually lower left. I'm going to go up. Right now I have this in full screen mode. And if you go up to, there's a lot of options up here in the workspace. I'm going to click on workspace. And if you see, let me see if I can do this and answer your question. Workspace. I have full screen mode enabled so that I don't even see my taskbar. Now, if you have that enabled, if I turn that off, then it looks the same. But if I minimize it, and minimizing is very simple like any other program. I just hit that little line up there. Minimizing it will drop it down to the bottom tray, okay? So it's now not on my screen. Like, where did it go? If you have, I have my taskbar off, so you're not even seeing anything in the lower section of my window right now on my display. But if I bring my mouse cursor down on PC, you will see that taskbar enabled. And if you zoom in, you will see, oh, there's DaVinci Resolve. There's the logo for it. If you're on PC and you minimize it, you should see the logo down in your taskbar. And if I click that, what will happen? DaVinci Resolve comes back, okay? On Mac, it does a similar thing. It will be down in the, there's a tray. And if you're using it and it's minimized on Mac, it's also in a tray down below. They have a very similar functionality. One last piece of advice I want to give you for people coming from CapCut. This is a tip that I gave to people recently for more advanced users or users who have been using the software for a minute. This is a very advanced video editing software, which means every time you start using some of the features, it's going to put a lot of system resource strain. So number one, make sure you look at the recommended system specs, not the minimum, recommended system specs, and make sure that your laptop or computer can handle this software. I will leave a link where you can check that, because if you're just making 1080 basic cuts and basic edits, you don't need to have as strong a system as if you were using 4K edits and you're using the Fusion page and a lot of color grading. It's going to use more system resources. Something that CapCut is a little more condensed and doesn't have as much functionality, so you don't feel it as much. You're going to feel it a lot more in DaVinci Resolve. So make sure your system meets the recommended specs. But beyond that, there's a thing that you definitely need to do that nobody talks about. Okay. A lot of the cameras and phones and things that people film on, they film in a video format that's either H.264 or H.265. You guys have probably all seen it. MP4, H.264, MP4, H.265. It's a great format for displaying videos because it uses a ton of compression and saves space so that the video files are smaller. But any video editing software, especially DaVinci Resolve, if you're editing with H.264, H.265, sure, the file size is smaller, but every time you bring that into your timeline, the software has to read through that encoding, all of that compression. It has to read through the codec, decompress it, and then do the thing you want it to do. So when you bring in regular footage and you go, oh my, I've seen more people suffer through lag. Like, why is DaVinci Resolve lagging? It's like because you're using an advanced video editing software and you're editing H.264 or H.265 footage. there is a thing that you can do before you start your project. I recommend anyone do if you've got H.264, H.265 footage. I don't care if you have a computer like mine. Like I've got MacBook Pros, M series. I'm this system on right now. It's got a 4090 graphics card. It's got an i9 14900K processor on it. It's got 128 gigabytes of RAM. It's got 8 terabytes of system storage. You name it, this thing I built by hand. It is a monster. It's designed to edit. And I can still lag it out with DaVinci Resolve when I dive into a heavy project. If I'm editing with H.264 or H.265, what you can do is you can create more edit-friendly file types inside of Resolve. And I want to show you that really quickly, okay? So you know how to do it. When you, let me go back to the edit page. I'm in the edit page, okay? Here I am. Let's get rid of all this stuff. Let's just go back up to my project manager. I've got my video here. Here's my video files. In the upper left, these are just the video files that I brought in, okay? If they happen to be H.264, H.265, one of the common codecs that we're used to using, what you can do is go down to the lower right and open up your project settings, okay? And let me see if I can find it. I haven't done this in a minute. Okay. Scroll down. I am on, let me see if I can find it. I am on the very top option of master settings, and you want to scroll down and get to optimized media and render cache, okay? Once you are here, you will see these options for proxy media. Proxy media is basically two things. It's going to take your files and it's going to change them in a way that they are more friendly for the software to run. Now, it can just change the file type and keep the exact same resolution. It's not hurting them. It's just transcoding them to a different file type or codec that the editing software, it loves handling a lot more smoothly. Or you can even shrink them in size and go, well, I don't have a really powerful system. Why don't I come up, if this is all 4K footage, why don't I cut them like in half and do smaller files that it'll edit with more easily, okay? What you want to do is, what I would say is make your first decision. Let me see if I can do this. The first decision here would be choose if you want it to be at the original, if you want it to be the same resolution as the original ones, or if your system's struggling, you can cut it down to half, you could cut it down to quarter, or even an eighth, and it'll shrink those files down to sizes that are more easy to edit with. Once you've chosen that, I'm going to choose, let's say, I'll choose half and say I wanted to make half. Then what you want to do is choose the file type. And if you see here, H.264 and H.265 are options, but they are horrible to edit with. The ones you really want to use are DNxHR-HQX or DNxHR-HQ. The difference between HR-HQ, I'm falling over my words today. The difference between the two is the color bit depth, and you don't need to know all that stuff yet. Let me just say to you that if you are looking at these two options, let me see if I can move this. The HQ option here supports 10 and 12-bit color depth. So that would be for Resolve Studio. But if you're using the free version, you would want to opt for DNxHR-HQ. That is 8-bit color depth. That's as deep as the color space that the free version can work with. Choose that one for the regular free version. And that's the first thing that you need to do. If you just set those two, right? I want half resolution at DN at whatever you choose for your, you could choose regular HR. You don't have to do HQ, but I'm running the Resolve, so I'm going to go with the HQ. Once you've set that, go down to the lower right and just click save. And it's just telling the project that if I need to make proxy files, this is the type of files I would like to make. Hit save, and it's now set that up. Now, when you go up to the upper right in your preview window, what you can do is, I'm going to go up here and see if I can find it for you. Right click on your footage. So you can select more than one, by the way. I'm selecting one. And if you scroll down, let me see if I can find where it is. You can create, I got to remember where it is. You can create proxy media. Let me see where that option is. Oh, there it is. Let me find it. Boom. Generate proxy media. And all that does is it tells DaVinci Resolve, hey, I know you said if we do need to change the codec here, I'm using if I want to do that, take the settings that we've told it to do and now do it for these video clips. So I'm going to pick that one and I'm going to click Generate Proxy Media. You will see a screen pop up, and depending how big the file is, how strong your computer is, whether it's 4K or 1080 or 8K, you know, it's going to take longer the bigger the file type and the more data there is. But once it's done generating that media, we'll give it a second here. What it's going to do is it's going to allow you to take these proxy files that it has created and swap them for the files that the source files, the original files that came from your camera. Don't let that freak you out. When you go to export, it's going to use the originals unless you tell it to do different. By default, it's always going to revert back to the original source files. But this will allow you to switch over to a better codec that handles, that editing software handles much more smoothly. Codecs that were designed to not have all that crazy compression. And then once you're done, like I'm done right now, that took care of that file real quickly. The only other thing you want to do is go up to playback. Let me see if I can get this open so when I zoom in, you'll see it. Go up to playback, scroll down to proxy handling, and then you want to switch from prefer camera originals and select prefer proxies, the second option, okay? And when you say playback, timeline of proxy handling, prefer proxies, you will now see that any clip that you have turned into a proxy file and made a proxy file of will have this little purplish PXY proxy symbol right there, if you can see it. And now what it's going to do is it's going to defer to these exact same file types that have been switched in codec, which could be just as full resolution as the first ones if that you want. But if you're system is struggling, you can make smaller proxy files so that you can sit there and edit and not beat the heck out of your system while you may be doing some more advanced fusion, color grading, things like that. And it will always defer back to the source files when you export. Like I said, unless you tell it to do differently, it will always do that by default. And it's one of the things I think that not enough people talk about. I don't care if you've got a great system, make proxies if you're with H.264, H.265. Unless you're filming in ProRes or log or something that is non-compressed, then I would go right ahead. Like a lot of us will have expensive cameras, and we will film in different codecs that aren't going to be as compressed as some of those. So this, even the phones now, Apple iPhones have like Apple ProRes. You can get these uncolor graded, uncompressed kind of file types. But a lot of times they're still like Rec 709 or Rec 2020. It depends on the file type. But if you swap them over to something more usable, that's one of the most important things if you're just coming to DaVinci Resolve. Before you start your you just brought your files in. It can take a minute. It can take a few minutes if you've got a lot of files. Step away, have a coffee, change them all over to proxies, switch the display to prefer proxies, and start editing with those proxy files. And I promise you, your experience with DaVinci Resolve is going to be so much smoother than people who are struggling with just bringing stuff in from their phone or their camera and going, why is it crashing on me? That's the best tip I can give you right now if you're coming over from something like CapCut, okay? Like this, Darren Vincent says, hey, please say the DaVinci Resolve for noobs. Yeah, I have to make a new one. That intro I have on the other one I made way back in the day, and I keep using it, but it's like not shot well and the audio's a little funky. But yeah, it's just me going DaVinci Resolve for noobs. I got to make a new one and step that up and bring that up to 2025, right? So everybody, listen, I hope this has been helpful. I will leave this up for the replay. I'm hoping that maybe something happens and you people who have been using CapCut will get it back. But if you don't, I would love to have you here in the DaVinci Resolve community with us, learning how to use a really good pro editing software that you'll never look back once you've learned how to use Resolve. It is a monster, and it can do just about anything you need it to do. So try to enjoy the rest of your day, struggle through it, keep creating. Don't let anybody make you stop creating, because that's the most important thing you can do. Stay positive. I'll always be here if you have questions. Ask anytime in any video, in any comment section. I'll do my best to answer. And you guys have a great day. Peace.